So guys, today I wanted to do a video that it's been a while since I done this. So yeah, a tier list again. Is this trend still going on? Well, you tell me in the comments, right? But today we're going to check it out, the modern or the most modern top tier FOX-3 missiles, and we are gonna rank them in 4 tiers over here in a tier list. Just a small disclaimer before we get into it. Remember guys, all of these missiles are amazing. I didn't include the M54 A or C or the Fakur because they are missiles that are normally not in top tier. Normally, of course, they can get to top tier like the F-14B can get to the 13.7 BR range, but still, I'm talking about the common top tier missiles that you see, the 90s plus missiles that we normally have as FOX-3s, okay? And the second one, the second small disclaimer is that, guys, every single missile that you see over here, all of them are amazing. All of them are amazing, okay? Each to their specific plan to actually be amazing. For example, the Mika is amazing in turning, you know, it's amazing at short range. The R77 is that as well. But the M120 and the AM4 there, or the PL12, they're better for long ranges. So it depends on the type of gameplay that you are. And I'm gonna give a little bit of a explanation in each missile, and at the end of the video a little bit of an overall explanation of all, because what I'm trying to put in S over here, the highest ranks, are basically the missiles that are the best at doing everything, okay? They're the greatest at everything. So we're gonna start with the AM4, a missile that, if you can even see the clipped wings over here, that it's made to be kind of like a M120C or something like that, but in the game right now, it is not the greatest missile ever. It's probably one of the worst, actually. Is it bad? No, it is still an amazing missile. All of these are amazing, but compared to the other ones, it turns less, it has less energy, and although it has a pretty good drag parameter that can make this missile actually retain better energies than some of the other missiles like the Mika and R77, it is still lacking compared to the other ones. So overall, it is not the greatest at dogfights and short-range engagements, and it's not the greatest at long-range engagements. So the AM4 is probably the missile that you might need to just stay away a little bit. The drag coefficient between this missile and the M120s are not that far off, but the thing is, the initial power of this missile makes it, and the turning capability makes it worse than the M120. Again, small margins over here, guys. These missiles are all amazing. I have to reiterate this all the time because people don't understand this, but yeah, all of these missiles are amazing, okay? Don't complain that I just added to the C variant here, like the C tier list. It's just that it's not as good as the other ones. M120, and of course I introduced the M120A, the B, and the RB99, since they are all the same missile in the game right now. I would put it in the A category. Why? Because it's the good at everything missile. It's good at turning, it's good at long range, but the thing is, it is still going to be worse in turning and in short range engagements than some of the others that we're going to talk about, like a lot worse. But the thing is, technically, if you're going to fire a missile from above 35 to even more kilometers, 40 kilometers, something like this is the missile that will be the best in these ranges. It is the missile that can maintain the most amount of energy, even not being great in the short range department. In the long range department, this is the best missile. The problem is that, although it would be an S tier for that, it is literally the best missile for long range. The problem is that people normally don't do these type of shots anyway. Not a lot of people like to fly high, not a lot of people like to do BVR from 30-40 kilometers, and even at 40 kilometers, even though it is better than some of the others, it would be like the Mika is impossible to hit at 40 kilometers, the M120 has a slightly more possible chance, but it's still very unlikely, right? So at the end of the day, it is still a feature that, although the best in the game on that department, it is still a missile that cannot use fully because the matches don't allow it. The way that everything is in War Thunder doesn't allow it to like make that big of a difference. So again, these missiles are so close to each other, but look at the difference in tier, because you know this is just, you know, it's very fine margins over here. Okay, guys, slightly less power, okay drag, but more power, more drag, more turn, less drag, more turn, you know, so overall just a better missile. Mika EM, I gotta put it right here as well. It is the best missile at short ranges. It is amazing. If you wanna kill something at less than 10 kilometers, this is the missile to go for. Like, this is amazing. The problem is, above 20 to 25 kilometers, it becomes literally the worst missile in the game. Literally the worst missile. Like, it's really bad at long ranges compared to some of the others. Worse than the AM4, worse than the AM120. The thing is that the majority of the matches, a lot of people like to fly low and get people from lower ranges. So the Mika up to 10 kilometers, 15 and even 20 is one of the best missiles out there, right? So yeah, the long range, I cannot add to the S tier just because of that. Just because it's really, like, it's really bad at like 24 kilometers plus. And 24 kilometers is not that far away, you know, and AM120 will do way better than the Mika at those ranges. So they are like right there. They're both in their respective manners of playing. So AM120, longer ranges, Mika, short ranges. If you're gonna play with AM120, I would suggest to fly high, although flying low can still be doable, and try to get people from far away. The Mika, I would just not try to fly too high, probably fly low and get people by surprise in the shorter ranges, okay? Then we have the Derby, guys. The Derby is, I gotta put it in the S tier. Why? People will complain to me about this, I know. But hear me out, guys. This missile is technically worse than the Mika in the short range and worse in the long range for the AM120, but it's in the sweet spot to be able to do everything, and that's why I love the Derby so much. And I can include the Darter over here, since they are very similar missiles. They are not the same missile, but they're like little things, like grams of weight of difference, right? Literally. So at the end of the day, you know, they're pretty much, you know, the same missile. And I gotta say, man, although, yeah, I love the Mika to be able to play in these short range engagements, I love the AM120 to be able to play in these long range engagements, no other missile like the Derby and Darter can do both so well. So yes, they will be worse than the Mika in the short range, and they will be worse than the AM120 in the long range, but it is not that far from them. And in the, you know, average, it can do way better in the short range than the AM120 and way better in the long range than the Mika. So they combine, they're basically the jack of all trades, right? They can do a little bit worse in the turning capability, a little bit worse in the long range capability, but at the end of the day, you can do it all. And that's why I think it's the most reliable, most interesting missile you can use. The missile that will make every single type of gameplay work. So that's the thing that you have to worry about here. If you like to play BVR, the AM120 will be better than these threes. If you like to play with short range, surprise attacks, Mika is the best missile of the game. But if you like to play like an average player, sometimes you do some BVR long range, sometimes you do low flying, sometimes you... Whatever the question is, this is the answer, okay? So these missiles, are they perfect? No, they're not, but they're still the jack of all trades. So because of that, I have to put them in a higher rank than these. Again, small margins over here, okay, guys? It's not like these missiles are bad. And even a small margin between these. Then we go for the Soviets/Russians. I mean, they were started to develop these in the Soviet Union, so I just decided to use the Soviet flag, but you know what I mean. R-77 RVV-AE, which is the exported model for China. Basically the same missile. They're the exact same on the files. I gotta put it on the B tier because it's complicated. It's a little bit different than it's the same type of gameplay as the Mika, but it is worse than the Mika because it has less energy. And the drag is, although a little bit better than the Mika, it's not far from it. So still, it has less energy. It turns basically the same, so it is very good at short ranges. Again, these missiles are all good, but the drag doesn't help. And with that, it kind of falls in the same category with the Mika, but with less energy. In the long range, it will be better than the Mika, but not by much. And in the short range, it's worse than the Mika. Way worse than the M120, way worse than these. And although in the very short range, like very short range, in very specific situations, like less than between a target that it's between 4 and 5 kilometers, something like this, it might be that this missile will turn better than the Derby and the Darter. And why is that? Because it has a little bit more Gs, right? It has 50 Gs instead of the 40. But the thing is, it has so much drag and less energy overall because of that, that the Derby and Darter will have a long-lasting capability of turning better because they will be able to reach that 40 Gs longer than the R77 can reach 50 Gs, okay? So just remember that. And yeah, I would suggest you to just be careful using these in the long ranges. It's not as bad as the Mika, but it's bad. It's worse than the M4 in the long range. It's worse than the M120. It's worse than everything else besides the Mika. It's the second worst missile in the long range capability, and in the short range capability, it is technically the second in some areas, but it loses to the Darter and Derby very quickly after that because of the drag. So it's a missile that it is good. You can use it. It is even great depending on the situation, but there are better missiles out there, slightly better, right? And then the Chinese PL-12 and the SD-10A, they are both the same BR in the game, okay? The same BR, the same, you know, performance in the game. And I have to put it right here. This order here, it doesn't matter. I mean, I still believe maybe the PL-12 is better than the M120. It's just the Mika, it's a very different missile than these two, so I cannot like compare them directly in this like inner tier over here. But the PL-12, it is what the AM4 should be actually. It is turning better, although it doesn't have the most amount of energy. It has better energy than AM4. It does turn worse at slightly like very short ranges, but shortly afterwards the drag just kills it compared to the R77 just get killed by the drag, while the PL-12 has a much better drag coefficient. And with that, the M120 and the PL-12, they are very, very, very similar to each other. Slightly more turn, slightly more energy, but they're basically almost the same missile with different variants, basically, right? They're very, very similar to each other, just small differences here and there. But yeah, longer ranges, they are better. But of course, in the short ranges, they can still turn very well, 38 Gs if I'm not mistaken, and it's better than the 35, slightly, right? And with that, it has a pretty good energy as well, very low drag, so very good missile for long range. But of course, it loses overall to the Derby and Darter. And here it is, guys, just a conclusion before we wrap the video up. Again, guys, these are the missiles that I think are the jack of all trades, the missiles that can do it all for any player, for every single game, you know? These missiles, they are great, they are up there with the S, but they are worse in one thing that makes it an A tier. So the Mika in the long range, the PL-12 and the M120 in the short range compared to the Darters and Derbies, okay? And the R77, it is almost like the Mika, but it loses on the energy and the drag is almost the same. So although it's slightly better than the Mika on the long range, it's not by much, and it loses by a lot to the M120s, and the short range turn, it loses very quickly to the Darters and Derbies because of the energy and the drag. And the AM4, it's the poor little thing that doesn't have energy. It is pretty good at long ranges, but at short ranges it can lack against all of these. And although it can kill targets, I mean, it's a 32G missile, man. It's still a great missile. You will lose more missiles than these others depending on situation, especially at lower ranges compared to some of these. And in the long ranges, it still loses to these two. So it's basically the C is the one that loses to everything. It loses on the short range, it loses on the long range to all these. The R77, although wins a little bit, it wins the majority of the things against the M4. And it loses to the majority of the stuff here. The Mika, they win at one thing, and these ones, you win at one thing, you lose on all the others. And the Derbies and Darters, they might lose here and there, but overall, they're better overall. Okay, but basically this is it, guys. So this is my opinion, personal opinion, of course. Let me know in the comments what is yours, and I see you guys on the next one. Subscribe and bye, guys. Sorry for the long video. Okay, see you.